It is a Yamaha FG-420e C. Very romantic name. Why can't they just name them the Cougar or Leopard? Anyway, it has had it's an old guitar. It's been around for a few years. It must be one of the first, or close to the first, electric acoustics. I'm doing the diagnostics now, and I'm going to do the fix afterwards, but it has some issues. The tuners are all loose. That's neither here nor there. Fretboard is dirty as hell, and some of the frets are fairly worn, but not time for a fret job yet on it. Bridge pin's broken. The bridge is lifted a little bit, as you can see there's paper going in behind it the whole way around. I don't think it's worth lifting it off. I'll probably just do a clamp and a glue at this stage. It has bigger problems. Old battery needs to be put on it to check to see whether the electrics are working. There's nowhere for the battery to go, so I wonder how they managed to keep the battery in. Anyway, there's paint flecks over it, and it's in rough shape. I wouldn't say it's awful shape, but it's got a lot of scratches and stuff like that there, and but it can be cleaned up and made to look pretty. The neck's got some scratches on it too. It's not the prettiness that's the problem. The problem is another one of these where the body has sunk, and you can get your finger in there. Well, you can't get your little finger in there, and you can see the action is mustard. Now, I see this an awful lot on the guitars with the cutaway. There's not enough support there, and I see an awful lot of these with the sunken bodies. Whether that's the problem or not, I don't know. But also, we have an issue with the. Let me just see if I can let you see it. Come on, Austin, get your fingers working. Austin's not getting his fingers working. That's it now. Now, if you look down along there, you'll see that the neck has got a. Let me just see it. You don't see it. Ah, there we are. A mighty fine underbow the whole way along, which doesn't help it a lot. Strings, again, are far too heavy. Look, that string, I don't know what it is, but let me tell you. I'll measure it before I cut it off. So, I got a feeling it's going to need a couple of little posts just to stop any more sinking. I got a feeling that the only way to fix this without a whole lot of hassle is to take the fretboard off and put the shim underneath, because taking that neck off would be a hell of a job, especially with the cutaway. And so the owner will only be playing it up here. So if I can get it down a good bit, you can see too that the strings too high at the top, so the nut needs brought down. I can thin the bridge down and get it as low as I possibly can, and see what happens first before I put in the neck shim. Okay, so we'll test the electrics next. If you notice on this that the string is sitting very proud of the nut. Now, generally, a good nut will be shaped so the string should be half in, half out of the nut. But that one, this is so thick, it's sitting right on the hole, and it's not being held at all. So, in a good guitar, I don't want to say in all guitars, but a good guitar, if your string's sitting on top, it usually means they're too thick for what the guitar is made for. But that's just a general rule, not a rule of thumb, as they say, because some guitars, good ones, still have nuts that are not shaped properly. Right, we're going to test the electrics now. I switch on the amp. Ooh, sounds a little bit loud. Okay. Oh, that's a stiff jack to go in. Let's put the battery in. See if it plays. Oh, we have noise. Yeah, the knobs and the electrics are working, but they're all old and not being used for a long time. I think that we may have a very dull sounding pickup, but again, you can't see it from where you are, but there's rust under the strings. So I think that would be a great song. Must write a song about that. All right, so got some cleaning up to do the electrics and find a way to keep the battery working. By the way, I bought some of these, as you can probably see. Can you see? Can you see? Can you see? Can you see? I don't think you can see. Did I just do all that in vain? Look at that, we're getting feedback. How can we get feedback? How can we get feedback? Did you see any of that? Anyway, okay. I've moved it into position anyway. I bought a whole pile of these from Amazon, rechargeable batteries. The only thing I bought an Amazon charger too. These are the Amazon, what do you call originals or something like that they call them, because they're cheap. They heat up a little bit when they get charged. That's the only thing that worries me. They heat it up a little bit more than my other charger does. But other than that, they seem to be pretty good. They did well on the tests that I watched on TV. Cheap is my guiding light. Okay. The good news is the truss rod gave the neck a straight. It made it nice and straight. Slight underbow still, but I'm not tightening it up anymore. Now let's go look inside. What do we see? It's the bridge that I want to see most. And as usual, you can see it better than me until I get it out and look at it. Looks pretty good to me. They look to be all tight enough. Although I'll give them a feel whenever I'm, the only pleasure I get, give them a feel whenever I'm going in there. And then let's turn around the other side. That's the pulse button, my mistake. Right. I can't quite see that. Well, maybe that's where the battery's supposed to click into. Alright. Maybe. Let's have a look at the rods to see they're all okay. They need to be all glued down well. Okay. I must test the battery on that to see. Got foam on it too. Talk about awkward. So you can put a battery in, but only when you've no strings on, or loosen the strings completely. Anyhow, I have discovered with over time that the posts don't do an awful lot to give you any height. And as you can see here, you can almost see the body sunk there. The hole is misshapen. Let me get it back into focus. The hole is misshapen. You can actually see it sunk down on the left-hand side. So I'm going to have to put a couple of ugly posts in it just to stop it going any further. Aye, now here's the rub. If you look at this, I put the flat on the neck and it's hitting, how much would you say there, about 1/8 of an inch beneath the neck?
and what it needs to be is that's where the straight edge needs to be. So that means that a wedge is going to be essential, and it's fairly chunky wedge too for this one. The wedge is the biggest problem I have manufacturing, because I'll show you in a second. That needs to be there at minimum, right? There at minimum, which means that the fretboard needs to be raised up that far. I wonder if this is one where I have to take the neck off. Well, that is bloody annoying. You've missed 10 minutes, but you haven't missed much. I put the heater on, I put tape on, and I'm starting to heat up the fretboard to take it off. But you missed it because the SIM card which I put in, if you can see it, it's got one of those, that's a 64 gigabyte, and it plugs into this size, which is the size my camera takes. And for the last 10 minutes been recording, and then it came up and said this movie has stopped recording. And when I checked to find out, it wasn't recording to the chip, because sometimes this doesn't go in far enough, or sometimes these don't connect. So now I've got a 32 gigabyte chip in, but I hate it, and it's very difficult to buy these larger chips. Everybody wants to sell you the small microchips now. Anyway, burn over. Right, this is heating up, been heating up for about 5 minutes, and I just want to get in there. Okay, can you see this? Yes, you can see it. I'm coming up to the end now, because the glue is so well melted that it's coming off fairly easily. Shrimpy's looking at me because I'm grunting and groaning. Shrimpy's looking at me because I'm grunting and groaning. The clicking you hear is my tool, my scraper, not anything else. Right, okay. Now I'm going to take that away to see if I can finish the last without, because the glue seems to be very well melted. Right, okay. Let's just get this out. Don't rush it. Take your time. The heat will stay in there for a while. Right, okay. Last fret. Coming up to the last fret. It might pop. There we go. I feel it loosen completely now. Right, okay. Now this would be piping hot, but you can see the glue has melted, and some of the it's green because there was corrosion on it. I'll stop the camera now and use the other camera. That's it. The other camera. There's where your camera was. Oh, your movie you recorded exceeded. That's okay. It doesn't matter. Right, so that came off cleanly, nice and cleanly the whole way. There's the truss rod. It actually looks pretty good. No damage at all. I'm very happy to say. Let me just roll to the other side. Let me just see. No damage worth crying about. Right, okay. And what I'm going to do now is clean this up quickly before the glue sets. And next step would be sanding it. Actually, that came off much better than I thought it was, and it came off relatively straight. Relatively straight. So now I'll let you see how much of a gap needs to be put there. So that's a rough approximate, maybe not as high as that. That's a width of a bridge. See this is a bridge, yes, that's right. And I put it on its flat side. And that sort of gives me the right height from there to the end. So the wedge has to be ending in this thickness to get to the right height of the saddle. So now I need to find a piece of wood, maybe two pieces of wood. I might put one strip down this side and then strip down that side, depends, and get someone to cut it from. Just gluing down the bottom end of the bridge. Now if you notice, I just used a paintbrush and shoved paint in beneath the little crack, a hairline crack, and now I've pressed down hard on these clamps and I have some squeeze out, which is what I was looking for. Now I'm just going to clean that up and let it sit for 24 hours, maybe 48 in this case. I was working away here and you were missing all the fun. So let me just carry on working away. It might get a little bit jiggly. There you go. Left a little bit of wood on. I'm not going to do any sanding of that because I'm going to stick it back on again and sand it down. So what I'm going to do is put my little saw on that and go down through it. So what I'm going to do now is get my little saw and go down the neck very carefully. Okay. Right, okay. Going to move the camera, turn things around, and then show you what I'm going to do. Right, for demonstration purposes, I've clamped the fretboard back on again. I've clamped the end of the guitar, and as you can see, the guitar is, I've done nothing yet. That's just the gravity of the guitar holding it down to that shape, right? So when I put that on, a straight edge, you'll see that it's risen to there. So if I put a bit of pressure on the neck till it jams, let me just make sure, yeah, till that's where I would probably glue it. You can see that it's got just the right amount of correction to the neck. Okay. You're paying attention. I will be asking questions after the class. If you remember, there was a battery compartment screwed up against the neck, so you had to take that off, rubbing, drilling the hole through it. I have a screw now, a bolt that I'm going to put in. It's a very special bolt, as you can see. It's one of the ones you use for bolting down your toilet seats, a smaller one than normal. And what I'm going to do is drill a hole here and countersink it a little bit, as close to the top as I can. Let me just see, as close to there as I can. Might even have to go a little bit further because I want to be where the dovetail is, the strongest part. I think the dovetail starts about, it's hard to hold it, but half an inch up from the top there, so I want to be up there. And then when I tighten the screw together, it'll pull that side in and leave the top straight. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in these areas with some epoxy rather than super glue, because these edges are not going to be touching beautifully together. Put the bolt in first, put the epoxy in, and then tighten it where I need it to go. It's the hole drilled. You didn't really want to see me drilling a hole, did you? Really? Seriously? Now I'm going to put the washer on and just carve out a little bit for the washer to go sinking in. Not too far. Right, now that's the bolt tightened a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm also tempted to let the bolt sit out a little bit and make it a guitar strap hanger and using a bolt on the inside. So there'll be a bolt on there and a bolt there and a bolt on the inside holding the neck together. But this might just sit out a little bit for a guitar strap holder. Haven't gone down that route yet to 100% sure. But if you put, I've got the fretboard clamped again roughly in position. As you can see, we've made up quite a bit of space there, and we can get away with putting maybe tighten the bolt slightly more. One thing you got to be careful of, you tighten the bolt too much and you might crack there, but you can tighten it a little bit more. But I'm relatively happy with that. But one of the things you will see, you've got a good enough clearance there, right? One of the things you will see, the fretboard will be, when I've glued this back down again, the very bottom parts of the fretboard will be down lower because there's a curve on the neck now. This is going to be messy. Bolts in at each ends. I'm mixing up the epoxy now. You can't see anything, but I'm mixing up the epoxy in a very expensive epoxy holder. What is it? Beetroot? It's beetroot, I think it is. And I think this is going to be messy because I'm going to have to get it down the sides and I'm going to get it well inside. And one of the things I'm thinking is that we'll see how well the epoxy... I didn't sand. I decided not to sand because I want rough edges. I've cleaned it out, but I want rough edges for the epoxy to hold. I would sand it if it were tight bond, but as it's not going to be tight bond, two flat surfaces, I want to have something that's going to adhere, have some grip to it. So how would I get this in now? Let me just do it this way and see what happens. Okay. Let it sink in. We can tidy up any mess afterwards. I have all the tidying up stuff here. Right. Okay, let me just give this a wipe. A quick wipe. I'll go quicker, I'll go more on the wipe later. And do this side. All right. If there's gaps or anything like that there, we can fill it in later on. I want it to sink in there. Right, okay. Sink in. Right, okay, go on, sink in. I have a little bit of metal here. I'm going to make sure this goes down and pushed into the place where I want it. It's a little bit of hard sort of tinfoil stuff. There is a possibility that I might not need the screw. The epoxy resin could hold it. The screw is belts and braces, actually, you know. That's pretty well in there. Okay, now another bit of tissue just to clean that off. Clean that off, right. Now, let's see what the other side happens. Yeah, okay. Now, some in there. I think I'll be a little bit more careful here at this side. This is going to be closed up tight. No doubt some of you are saying, well, why don't you take the neck off and put the epoxy resin properly on it? Because I don't want to take the neck off. I don't want to take the neck off completely, because then you don't have that bracing at the top where I left it. Right, okay. Now, clean that up. Right, nearly sees it as vanished, but when I squeeze it together, there it is. Right, now a little bit of tissue and some white spirit, maybe too much white spirit, just to give it a quick clean, to get the epoxy that's spilt off before it goes hard. And I'm going to do that again once I tighten the bolt, because getting epoxy off is bloody hard. Alright, okay, now another dry tissue to get some of the white spirit on. I might be putting more on. Right, okay, that's it cleaned up that side. Let me feel it, see any catching there? No, there's no catching. Do I feel any there? No, I don't. Right, okay, so now I'm going to tighten the bolt up. Can you see the tightening of the bolt? I don't think you can. Maybe if I set it flat. Yeah, okay. I can remove all this garbage now. And I can actually use my headrest because it's going to give me the right angle that I want. Right, okay, but I can't get in the inside of the guitar now. Okay, stupid boy. So let me give it the general quick push with the little. Don't use electrical screwdrivers on your guitar. Right, okay. I like Dave's World of Fun Stuff. He uses electric screwdriver. And he says, don't use this, bad idea. Right, okay, I don't over tightness, but you can see the squeeze out coming. There's squeeze out coming all around it. Yeah, it's pretty good. But I do want to give it another tighten. That's as far as I'm going to go. When it's all finished, I'll put some more lacquer in there. It'll tidy it up. I'll stain little bits. I'm going to put another bolt on the inside just to give a double hit to the. Right, okay, that's good and firm and good and solid. Now, give it another little clean up all around, just in case there's any of that epoxy that's stuck somewhere or I didn't see it. I'm not going to clean too close to that because it's got where I want it now. No, okay, that looks. I can clean the guitar now. You see, the thing about having the bolt in it is it's holding it in place, so I could really work on the guitar a bit more, but I don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. Now, I know that I need to get some of that out because when the plate goes on, well, I tell you what's the plate look like? No, I'm going to have to make the plate smaller, but I have to get the plate flat on that, so I don't want to have it so the plate is sitting up or have to sand it all down, so I'll take away as much as I can of that. And look, I got some on it. Epoxy. Right, okay. Beautiful. I'll take off that white spirit. Okay, I think I'm going to leave that. It's amazing how epoxy's hidden a lot of sins there, isn't it? It's amazing how it almost looks finished in some way, although it's not. Okay, so let that dry. I think I'm going to give that 48 hours and then come back. This is the Yamaha that I sawed the neck off. New bridge, frets all had to be leveled quite a bit. Switches cleaned. Body all cleaned up because it was a bit of a mess. When I say a mess, I mean dirty and scratches on it and stuff like that there. I've got it all tuned up and set up now on the frets, but I do think it's going to take a little while to settle in. so I'm going to ask him to bring it back again. I don't think he lives far away. But let's just check it here and see what it plays like. Now I definitely recommend him to get new tuners because those tuners are done. I took off those tuners and tried to tighten them up, but they're cheapo tuners that Yamaha must use way at the beginning. And if you invested 30 quid on a nicer set of tuners, it'd stay in tune longer, you know, but it sounds great. Sounds great. Now it's only up to there, the money. Because I had to cut the neck, as you remember, and so it's bent. That's bent downwards, and those frets need to be brought down. But I didn't want to start messing with it until it's been settled in for a while. But perfectly playable up to there. In about a month's time, when he brings it back again, I'll work on those frets. But I don't think he's going to get playing it in much more than that, because it's quite high, the string level there. Very high. That's because it's got a bend in it, because I squished the neck. So and the electrics are working. But it's not being plugged in for this demo. So it's going back home to mommy. Daddy should I say, daddy, right.